Welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm Sandy Wrobel, your host for the show. We're very privileged to have with us Angie Cho. I'm sorry, Angie Cho. And she is from Manhattan, and she is a Feng Shui architect. And I think I met her almost about a year ago, and she was interested in coming to Connecticut to do the show with us. Welcome to the show, Angie. I'm very glad to be with you again.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, and I first heard about Feng Shui back in the mid-'80s. It was an astrologer from California, Angel Thompson, and she came and did a lecture about it and how it related to our natal chart. Of course, I don't recall exactly what she said. It's not something I've practiced. And it's becoming, I think, more and more popular. And can you tell us exactly what it is? I'm sure some people probably think, what in the world is that?
Well, Feng Shui is something that was developed in ancient China, and it's a way of looking at your environment to create the most optimal environment for your life, to improve the energy flow around you, and also a way of looking at your environment as a metaphor for what's happening in your life. Now, although Feng Shui was developed in China, there's many different types of Feng Shui or ways of looking at the land and your environment and creating the most optimal situation, you know, in many different cultures. So like in India, there's Vastu, and in different parts of Asia, they just have different names.
But basically the same theory behind it?
There are slightly different theories behind it because of the fact that the geographic locations are different. So Vastu, for instance, they create, they're about having an empty space in the center, and I think that's more appropriate for the type of climate they have in India. Whereas in China, there's many different types of climates throughout China because it's such a large country. So there's actually many, many different schools of Feng Shui. And the school that I actually practice is called BTB, and that's more of a westernized version of Feng Shui, which I think is more appropriate for Westerners in the U.S.
And you also live and practice architecture in Manhattan.
Yes.
Now, is it strictly Manhattan, or do you sometimes go to other places?
I work in California sometimes. I also work around all 5 boroughs, and I've done work in New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island. But the bulk of my work would be in Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Right, and I'm sure that's much different than it would be around here, where we more or less have homes, and Manhattan has the large buildings, to put it simply.
Yes, there's not a lot of new construction in Manhattan. It's mostly a lot of interior renovations. But I really like that because I think most people experience space, the interiors of spaces. You see the inside of a room, and the shape of a room or your home on the inside really influences the way that you interact in a space and the way that you are affected by the space, more so than like the outside of a building. Well,
although sometimes a building can be misleading, because even on home tours that I've gone on, sometimes a home might look like really nothing on the outside, and you go inside and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, you never know. But that's actually a Feng Shui thing too. When you look at, like, say you're looking at a new home to purchase, one thing that you should look for is how does it look on the exterior, because you say the home doesn't look like much on the outside, but then you're surprised when you go inside and it's very beautiful.
Yes.
And that applies to maybe the inhabitants in the home as well. Maybe those inhabitants have a lot more to offer the world, or are more interesting people than they appear to be, but it's a negative for them because the world really can't see the best that they have to offer. So that's reflected in their home and their Feng Shui too. So if you get a home that doesn't have good curb appeal and it's in disarray outside, and the landscaping isn't kept up well, that might influence how the world sees you as well. What it represents is that the world can't see what's that beauty inside, because it stops at the outside and sees what your face is.
I'm also thinking of one, I have a particular one in mind, that landscaping is fine. It's not in disarray. It just looks like a very plain, simple home. And when you go in, it's much larger because it's out of necessity been built out towards, you know, the back. And it's amazing because some houses look gorgeous on the outside and then you go inside and they're not gorgeous.
It might say something about the lives of the people that live there.
And do you think we're attracted to those things when we purchase something unconsciously?
Yes, absolutely. There's, you know, most feng shui is remedial. You go in after the place has been designed and maybe you can't move walls and you're not going to move. But you find that there might be some feng shui issues that show up because you are subconsciously attracted to that space. And I think actually subconsciously you might be attracted to that space because it might aggravate those issues in your life, so you actually start to address them.
Okay. Like clutter? I keep thinking I've got to do a lot with clutter. I know you've brought along several pictures of projects you've done, and we thought we'd just spend a little time, but before the show we were looking at them and we decided we could spend a lot more time. And I was amazed at the picture. To me, I just saw a room and I saw furniture. And you were explaining about what you did with the feng shui, and that wasn't the architecture, the first one. You said it's really something you did as a designer. So I think right now we're going to start taking a look at the pictures because I'd hate to have the audience miss out on seeing them, and they can then see what actually is done rather than just talking about it.
Okay.
So if we can get the projects on the air.
Okay. This was a project that is in Manhattan in the Upper East Side, and this was a very beautiful space to work on. It faced the park, and it was really, the intention for this space was to create a very open feel so that the family could really entertain and have many people over and really have their friends and family together. So creating that open space really created a big place for people to interact with each other, but then within those you create intimate spaces for small conversations. So this one, this apartment, this was one that...
You were finished with the last picture?
Yes. That's
okay.
And this apartment was actually is in the West Village, and this was the one that you spoke of earlier, where it was mostly decorating. I didn't do architecture for the space, but we used all non-toxic, as many non-toxic products as we could, and organic products. So, like the paint was a milk-based paint that uses a good percentage of food-based ingredients. So it was very non-toxic. So there's no off-gassing, which affects your health. Most traditional paints off-gas, and they off-gas for years, actually, and off-gas pollutants and chemicals into your air, and that affects your health, gives you headaches, there's a lot of issues. So everything from like the rug is made out of natural materials, it's jute, and actually the chair on the left is also jute, and we had organic cotton drapery and organic cotton pillows, and those pillows in the front are meditation pillows, the purple ones, and they're filled with organic buckwheat. And then we also placed the plants strategically for feng shui reasons, as well as the lights.
And what about the table, the coffee table? What is that made out of?
The coffee table is made out of glass. And, well, another thing I tried to do with the space is to really balance the 5 elements. So glass is typically related to the water element. So she doesn't have black, but having the glass can represent water, and the wavy shape of the coffee table adds the water element. And then we have the purple, that's for prosperity. The pink, and the pink is more about, the pink mat in the front is relationships. The orange and the pillows is earthy, as well as all the jute, and those like yellowish orange colors represent earth element, and then the white is metal element.
Very, very interesting. So I'm sure when you're doing this too, there's a lot more that you've studied You're making it sound very simple, but I'm thinking if I wanted to do this, it wouldn't be that simple.
Well, and you also, talk to the client and listen to what their needs are, what they hope to achieve with the space, and prioritize those intentions, and then use those as ways to really inform your design decisions. Before I studied Feng Shui, I did do architecture for many years, and I think it's, when you're good at something, it's easy to make a place look good, but what's more difficult is to put in the symbolism and put in the intention and really create a space that can support and nourish someone. So that's really what I love about Feng Shui, is that, maybe I'll pick this color or that color, but Feng Shui helps me decide maybe this color is better for them. Maybe red is better because they need a little bit more fire in their life.
So it's almost like going to an alternative doctor, perhaps, where first you do like an interview with them. You don't just go in with samples and say, this is what I'd like to do.
No, I definitely go I interview with them, I talk to them, I find out how they live, what they want to do, and I always, of course, they're going to be living there or working there, so I absolutely always put their needs first, and then I interpret them, and I come back and let them know, like, these are my thoughts, you might want it this way, but maybe let's try it this way. Like, for instance, I have a client that is single and is looking for a partner. And so when we were designing her bedroom, we're laying out, where are we going to put your bedroom? How are we going to lay out the closets? I said, why don't we have 2 walk-in closets? You need to create space now for your future husband. If you're designing this home, and if you don't create a space for someone, you're telling the universe you don't have room for someone to come into your life. And so if you create that space, the universe actually wants to fill that vacuum.
Very interesting. I've heard stories, people not in Feng Shui, but saying something similar. So if you want to keep people away, just have a lot of clutter.
That's true. It is, because clutter is often a lot of times about safety and protecting yourself.
Yes, if someone comes in, they can fall over the stuff and you're protected.
Yes, and it's about creating boundaries. And also clutter, a lot of energy gets stuck and blocked and stagnant around a lot of excessive clutter, and that really stops the energy from moving, and so it doesn't welcome new energy to come to you because it's so blocked.
And I think we have some more photos to look at, don't we? We saw 2, okay.
Yes. This is the same Upper East Side apartment, and that's their dog. And this was their family room. And, we didn't use a lot of Feng Shui in here, but this was more of a architecture project.
I wouldn't think that I would like it, but I like the lavender and the royal blue. I guess you could call it royal blue.
Yeah.
I like those 2 colors together.
That blue, like the dark blue in Feng Shui represents knowledge and self-knowledge and self-awareness and your spiritual life. And the purple, again, I said before, represents prosperity and abundance.
That's interesting. I've been to several weddings lately. I don't know why, but they come in bunches. And that royal blue seems to be a very popular color for bridesmaid gowns right now.
Oh, really?
People that don't even know each other. It seems like every wedding I'm going to, I'm seeing that color. And what about the green that is up there? Is there any significance to that next to the window?
They didn't use it for this reason, but that green is related to, because it's a little bit teal-ish, it's actually related to the wood element, which is about new beginnings, growth. It's a very healing color, actually. Probably if it was toned down a little bit, it would be more relaxing. But because it's so bright, the hue is very vibrant. It's, it represents more growth, kind of like the energy of spring, that bright, positive, we call it very yang energy, like that, like a blade of grass pushing out of the ground.
Like what we're seeing now.
Yes.
Now, in the city, too, in general, the spaces many times might be small. So that's one of the other things that you would consider when you're decorating. And
yes, with interior design and with architecture, Something that you consider is we have to put in a lot of storage, and there is an element of decluttering too when you work with the client, you know, prioritizing what they need and what they don't need, because I think because space is so limited in Manhattan and in New York City that people automatically want to create as much storage as possible. But sometimes, again, like I said about creating the vacuum, if your space is so full, you have no room to attract anything new into your life.
But I would think in the city maybe things would flow more because you're limited in how much clutter you can put in.
That's true, but you know, people put it everywhere, like under their bed, and you know, under your bed is not an ideal place to store things.
Oh, it isn't? Why? Because they sell special boxes to put under your bed.
They
even.
do, and I have some clients that have that, and I say, okay, well, if you have to have something under your bed, I would suggest that you have things that are bed related, such as pillows and blankets. But what it represents is, well, one thing is you want to have the chi flow all around you while you're sleeping, because when you're sleeping, you're in a passive state, and you're really susceptible to the energy around you. So you want to have the chi flow all around you. So it's better to have it open under your bed. But if you have to have something, like I said, you could have bed-related soft items. But a lot of people store things like shoes or pictures of ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, love letter, you know, negative things, and that all subconsciously affects you while you're sleeping. And so things under your bed can represent subconscious blocks in relationships.
Oh, very interesting. This could go on and on and on.
Yeah. Yes.
Do we have any more? Or here's another one.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to show this one. I don't know if you can, it's a little bit washed out, but on the right side there's actually an image of a yantra. And a yantra's a Vedic mandala, and they're related to different planets and different goddesses, and that's something I use a lot in Feng Shui as a Feng Shui adjustment. So they hold, there's a lot of symbolism with the yantra, plus there's specific colors involved. So for instance, above my desk, I don't have an image of it, but above my desk I have a Mars yantra, and it's in the Feng area of my desk, which represents passion and fire, and it's also Mars, which is fiery. Yes. And the colors are also fiery. So, and then I've also painted it myself, and it has a Vedic mandala around it, so it's very powerful.
You'll have to come back when Usha's here. She's Indian, and I know that every day on her front porch with chalk, she actually does a design. I'm trying to think of
a mandala maybe.
I think it has probably an Indian name to it, and it doesn't take her that long to do. Something they always did in India, and she does it at her home here. And I always enjoy seeing it.
Yes, I love it.
And I'm always looking at it thinking, I wouldn't have the heart to destroy it, but it's that thing, I guess, of letting new energy, new whatever in, that you get rid of it and it can be replaced with something else.
Yes, absolutely. Letting it go into the universe.
Yes. Since I don't have artistic ability, though, I would think if I could do something like that, I'd want to keep it forever. Well, I'm learning a lot about myself listening to you. Oh,
well, you know, even the yantras, you can even just get a Xerox copy of it and color it in with colored pencils, and it's really, it's an active meditation. I guess that's a whole different show.
Yeah, you'll have to come back. Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'm sure that Usha would have the Indian input into this too.
Yes.
The Brahmin, Vedic, whatever. Oh, okay. Now, I think that was the end. Oh, no, here's another one.
Okay. This is also another image of a living room, and you know, we place the pictures on the wall in a specific location. That's an area that's related to family. So there's some family images there to emphasize that place in the home.
I thought it was recessed with a curve, but it's actually part of the lamp.
Oh, the lamp, yes.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, to me it looked like the center part of it was recessed, but it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not, and it's the curve of the lamp. And you know, another thing that we do in Feng Shui is emphasize heaven, earth, and man. So we are doing by keeping it white on top, that relates to heaven, and then having more earthy, more colors like the blues in the center is more man, and then on the ground is the brown for earth. So it's just emphasizing another philosophy in Feng Shui.
Now that seems to have an awful lot of white in it.
It does have a lot of white. I like white. I think it's also the picture is a little washed out, but there's a lot more color in this space.
And also there's a circular table. Now is there something with the lines and circles with Feng Shui?
Yes, there's different symbolism. You know, I mentioned the 5 elements earlier. They all relate to different shapes. So round is related to, or a circle like that table is related to metal. White, all the white is very metal. And the wavy shapes, I don't know if you could see it in the carpet or the rug, that's water with earth together, because earth is brown. But it's actually pretty black too in this picture. But anyways, water is a wavy shape. So it's just about trying to incorporate all the elements and not having an imbalance, but having the elements work together to balance each other out for harmony.
In Feng Shui, are there 4 or 5 elements that they work with?
There's 5 elements. It's water, earth, wood, fire, and metal.
Air? Oh, metal.
Yes. Within Vedic tradition, there's air, but we don't have that. And also in Western, right?
Yes, and I'm thinking of astrology: earth, fire, air, and water. You know, which is different, but same concept in a way.
Yes, but but the fire and water and earth are almost in all different systems, right? And then sometimes they include, you know, air or metal and wood. It depends. But
metal to me always seems more man-made, not as natural. I mean, there are natural metals, but my feeling is different about metal.
Well, metal in the 5 element theory is it actually comes from the earth. So we say, for instance, so earth produces metal because metal ores come from the earth.
Right.
Metal produces water because metal, when it melts, can become very fluid. Water produces wood because you water plants and they grow. And then wood produces fire because when you burn fire, that creates, or when you burn wood, that creates fire, and then fire creates earth because when you burn the wood, it creates ash, which becomes earth.
Okay, it all seems so simple when you explain it and try to remember it. But it seems very logical in your explanation.
But the idea is to keep a balance and not to be too much in one direction.
And I know in our next show that we're going to do, it will be about commercial Feng Shui, because you've worked with that as well.
Yes.
And we have a little bit less than 5 minutes, and I know that we were speaking about a lot of different things, and I'd like to have you speak about what else you would like to have people know. For instance, somebody watching in the audience, they may be at home thinking, well, I wonder what I could do with Feng Shui. Can you have some little suggestions about what people could do? We know we already talked a little bit about clutter and things out under the bed. What are some other common things that might help improve people's energy flow?
Well, let's see. Well, one thing we were talking about before the show started was if there's ways to lose weight with Feng Shui.
Oh, definitely. I forgot. Yes. Very important.
And it's actually related to clutter in a sense. So there's 2 or 3 ways that I suggest, 2 or 3 tips I suggest to people for losing weight. One is to look in your closet and is to start decluttering your closet. For instance, people have that pair of jeans that they always want to fit into, and some people would say, oh, you should hold on to those jeans so you could maybe fit into them one day. But really, when you hold on to them, you're holding on to that energy and and it's holding you back. And similarly, you're holding on to the weight. And I found that when people let go of those ideas of how they might look better or feel better based on something in the past, when they let go of that piece of clothing, they actually are able to release the weight too.
So it doesn't matter whether what you're holding on to is a larger size or smaller size. You should just feel that you need to get rid of that. You don't need it. And when the time comes, you can just get something that fits?
Yes, because think about it. When you see that, okay, when you see that pair of pants that's too small, then you're like, oh, you know, you feel guilty, you feel bad. I shouldn't have had that cake last night because I want to fit back into my pants. Like, why can't I be as skinny as I used to be? So that's guilt you're holding on to. Similarly, if it's too big for you, you're like, oh, I'm worried that I might gain that weight back. I want to hold on to this. So you're holding on to the weight, and that's really when you're telling your body you want to keep yourself safe, and you want to keep the safety around you and keep people away, and also like you want to create, you're just holding on to that negative energy.
I've also, this is years ago, it had nothing to do with Feng Shui from what I heard, maybe it does, that restaurants like the Golden Arches, McDonald's Golden Arches, certain colors would make you feel hungry, like yellow, the gold, the yellow, the green.
There are certain colors that make you more hungry. In Feng Shui, we say like, if you wear white, wear a lot of white will help to be an appetite suppressant because it makes you look a little bit larger. So then, you know, when you see yourself in the mirror, you look larger than you are, so that prevents you from eating too much. Also, not having or in the kitchen, we recommend use blue if you want to reduce the amount of food that you eat, because blue is not very complementary to food.
Interesting. We have only 1 minute left. We will be doing the next show on commercial. Okay. So maybe with commercial we can even tie in this color theme again with Feng Shui and how it can be used or misused with restaurants.
Okay, definitely.
Okay, so I'm very happy that we are having you on the show. You're a wealth of information. And anything that you want to just say very briefly?
No, I'm just really glad to be here, and we just have so much to talk about. It's like I don't have anything small to say. I want to talk about it for a long time.
I know. Well, thank you very much for being here. And to our audience, we are going to do a second show that will be aired, and it will be on commercial Feng Shui. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoy it and have learned something, and you can start thinking about the colors in your own home.